talk about the Philippines, what the situation is as an investment destination. Now, that's added to that, meron na tayong pwedeng pag-usapan, the sovereign wealth fund. So sasabihin ko, exactly what's happened that we are forming a sovereign wealth fund for investments for big investments in the basic areas such as agri, energy, digitalization, climate change. Yun pa rin. But the point being is that now there is a wealth fund.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The big story tonight.
President Marcos is in Davos, Switzerland, to participate in the World Economic Forum. There, the president is determined to soft launch the proposed sovereign wealth fund, despite the measure not having been passed by Congress yet.
Marcos, meanwhile, refused to comment on allegations that at least 70 people are included in his delegation. Gerard de la Peña with the big story.
Hi, sir.
President Marcos says he has a number of agendas set during his trip to Davos for the World Economic Forum. But his main priority is to drum up global investor interest in the Philippines. Though there are no scheduled bilateral meetings during his visit, the president says he will use his time on the sidelines of the forum to meet with some businessmen. However, Marcos's trip to Davos is facing some criticism online with claims that over 70 individuals are included in the president's delegation. Marcos has yet to comment on these reports. In the delegation list from Malacanang, only 18 people were officially declared. The list includes First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, Ilocos Norte Representative Sandro Marcos, former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, other cabinet members, lawmakers, and senior government officials. Aside from potential investments, the four-day forum will also center on steps to boost global economy despite geopolitical tensions like the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine has earlier claimed that they have attempted to reach Malacanang for months to seek Marcos' support. Marcos now clarifies that he's ready to speak with Ukraine on the matter, but there have only been misunderstandings in terms of the schedule.
There was talk of it a couple of months ago, pero wala na napag-usapan. That's why nagulat kami when the special envoy came out and said na hindi pa sinasagot. Sinagot namin, but we didn't get it scheduled. We couldn't get it scheduled. I have no problem with talking to President Zelensky, especially now that mainit na ang gera dun sa kanila. Any expressions of support that he might feel is needed, we're happy to provide it.
The president also reiterated his plan to sell to investors the country's planned sovereign wealth fund, even though the Maharlika bill is still pending in Congress.
Sasabihin ko, exactly what's happened that we are forming a sovereign wealth fund for investments for big investments in the basic areas such as agri, energy, digitalization, climate change. Ganun pa rin.
Today, Marcos is currently attending the opening reception, lunch, and dinner for the forum. The president will be meeting with the Filipino community on Friday before heading back to the Philippines. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
Still on President Marcos' trip to Davos, the Philippine Airlines has denied allegations that a flight to Canada was canceled to make way for the president's trip. The allegations were posted on social media with the user claiming that all the crew, including pilots, stewards, and stewardesses, were forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. But in a statement, PAL noted that charter arrangements for the president's flight were made weeks ago and did not cause cancellation of the Manila to Vancouver flight. PAL says the flight scheduled to depart yesterday for Vancouver was canceled due to a technical issue with the aircraft, a Boeing 777. PAL says the chartered flight for Davos was also a Boeing 77 plane, but with a different registry number.
The Philippine Airlines also figured in another major headline today, with at least 10 of its crew members under investigation for attempting to sneak in nearly 40 kilos of onions and fruits from the Middle East. Customs says the agricultural products were confiscated upon the crew members' arrival in the country on January 10. The BOC says the flight attendants violated, among other things, the plant quarantine law of 1987 and the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act for failing to declare the produce. Some senators, however, criticized the Bureau for humiliating the flight attendants, while big-time smugglers and cartels remain unpunished. Senator J.V. Ejercito argued that the agri-products seized from the PAL crew were only for personal consumption, as onion prices in the country climbed to up to 700 pesos per kilo. Now to talk to us more about this customs investigation into the undeclared onions, we have on the show BOC spokesman Arnaldo De La Torre Jr., and he is joining us over the line. Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story. Sir Arnaldo? Sir Arnaldo,
Yes,
can you hear
yes,
us?
good evening.
There you go.
Good evening.
All right, good evening, sir.
Gretchen
Okay,
and
first of
Sir
all, can you clarify exactly this case with the 10 PAL flight crew? What exactly happened? Did this happen in different instances, or was there connivance? And would 40 kilos of onions classify already as smuggling?
Yes, Ms. Gretchen, thank you for having me. On January 10, 2023, the two Philippine Airlines flights are 655 from Riyadh, which are around 10 in the, and also PR655 from Dubai, which are arrived at 15:30 handed off, meaning 3:30 in the afternoon at Terminal 1, Ninoy Aquino International Airport. On board the named person, the PAL flight PAL attendants were these cabin crew members, and their luggage were checked by the Bureau of Customs personnel upon passing through the customs lane. The customs examiner intercepted these cabin crews to randomly check the check-in baggage. Mm-hmm. What happened was, when their check-in baggage was checked by the customs examiner, the customs examiner asked the cabin crew members if they accomplished a customs baggage declaration form. We call it CBDF. Some of the cabin crew members filled up the accomplished CBDF, or the customs baggage declaration form, and the rest of the cabin crew members opted to use the QR code scanner in filling up the baggage declaration form. It is a requirement of the customs whenever we arrive in the terminals to fill up if we have goods to declare. And the examiners asked them if they have goods to declare, and they responded in negative, and they ticked the no answer in the form. Then, after physical examination, the customs examiner found assorted agri products and referred the same to the plant quarantine officer. So, together with the plant quarantine officer, upon checking, they found out that there were assorted agri products inside the luggages. These are two occasions. The PR655 around 10 in the morning, and also around 3 in the afternoon, the PR65. So the customs officer accosted the cabin crews, and they found out that there were agri products inside their luggages. So as a policy of the Bureau of Quarantine, in order to protect the agriculture industry, pursuant to Presidential Decree 1433, whether it is small or one-piece agri product, they are required to submit a prior clearance from the BPI or from the quarantine. And from the country of origin, they are also required to submit a phytosanitary certificate. It is a prerequisite of our Department of Agriculture every time the product or plants are coming.
Mr. De La Torre, is it just a quarantine issue, therefore, or does it also qualify, in fact, as smuggling?
Yes, sir. We define the smuggling as it is an act of a fraudulent act of importing any goods into the Philippines as we all know, investigation, our customs officer asked them, they politely asked whether they have goods to declare. And they say it, meaning they don't have goods to declare. Nonetheless, even if it is a commodity or agri-products that is allowed to enter into our country, there are requirements that they have to comply. The law provides that we are allowed to bring in vegetables and other agri-products, at least 5 kilos. But you have to have a prior clearance or certificate of phytosanitary certificate upon arrival here in the Philippines.
So-
You can provide any of them. The Bureau of Customs will recommend to confiscate it, and the Bureau of Quarantine will receive as we turn it over to them.
So even granting, as Senator J.V. Ejerzo suggests, that baka naman for private consumption lang to, it doesn't really matter. This is still, there are still rules that were broken here.
Yes, sir. With respect to our good settlers, we understand where are they coming from, but the law has specifically stated that since this is a regulated agri-product, they have to have a prior clearance or phytosanitary certificate or clearance from the country of origin. This is to protect, the rationale there is to protect our agricultural industry.
Sir, the senators are criticizing the BOC. Ito nga po, meron po tayong mukha ng PALCRU, pero yung mukha po dun po sa malalakihang seizure of smuggled onions. Particularly, we have recently in the Port of Manila, Misamis Oriental, Mindanao Container Port, Batangas Seaport, yung mga milyones po na smuggled onions. Ano po nangyari doon apart from being able to confiscate the goods? Have we filed cases? Are there faces behind the smugglers?
Yes, ma'am. We understand the point of good senator. We're the part of the Bureau of Customs. We haven't published any faces or names of those passengers, of those cabin crew members. With due respect, the Bureau of Customs has intensified anti-smuggling effort since the assumption to office of our president upon instruction to the commissioner to intensify the anti-smuggling effort. With regards to those cases filed and those seizure cases we accomplished last 2022, maliwanag naman po na meron tayong significant na accomplishment. For the anti-smuggling activities po, we have accomplished at least 709 seizure cases. At yung anti-smuggling po na effort natin with regards sa agri-products po, meron ho tayong maliwanag na kinasuhan. Yung mga consignees involved, yung mga brokers na nag-facilitate po para magsubok na magpuslit sa atin, ito po ay agad namang kinakasuhan. May we clarify that the prosecutory power of the Bureau of Customs ito po ay limited lamang. Ang pinaka may exclusive jurisdiction or power ito po ay nandito lamang sa Department of Justice. So yung mga kaso po na sinasampa namin laban sa mga smugglers po, meron naman po tayong mga landmark case na magpapatunay na may na-convict po tayo. Kanya nga lang po, yung pong pag-build up ng kaso at pag-determine ng existence ng probable cause, ito po ay binibigay po natin, sinusubmit po natin sa pagtapa natin ng sa Department of Justice.
Mr. De La Torre, isang mabilis na lang po na tanong. Sa mga kaso pong ganito, whether in the case of the PALCRU or itong mga malakihan na mga smuggler, ano po nangyari sa sibuyas?
What do you mean?
Ano pong ginagawa sa mga
we turn it over to Department of Agriculture, yung quarantine officer po natin, and sila po yung magdi-dispose nito. Yung pong mga nahuli sa PAL.
Okay.
Alright, maraming salamat po, BOC spokesman Arnaldo De La Torre Jr. Several barangays in eastern Samar continue to be isolated due to floods caused by heavy rains the past week. Adding to the burden of affected residents is a lack of food supply and the damage to their livelihoods. Mon Gualvez with the story.
A part of the wall of this school in Barangay Siha in Borongan, Eastern Samar collapsed after weeks of heavy rain and flooding, a sign experts say of soil liquefaction. This is when the soil softens and erodes as a result of prolonged water saturation. Because of this, residents near the school now fear for their homes.
Maririnig po namin yung tunog na parang may bumabagsak pababa, tapos hindi ko alam kung yung bahay na namin yung susunod kasi ang lapit lang po ng tubig.
For Jessa and her 7-year-old daughter, it was a different kind of trauma. Their home was almost swept away by raging flood waters.
Kawawa naman yung mga anak ko. Palipat-lipat na lang kami ng bahay. Nung kailangan talaga namin yung maisip na titirahan.
Residents are now asking their local government for a more long-term solution to the perennial problem.
Sana makita po ito ng mga kinaukulan na mabigyan po ito ng budget para kahit pa paano mabigyan lang kami ng kontrol na hindi po patuloy na umano yung tubig sa amin kasi ang hirap pag mawala po yung mga bahay namin.
For its part, the local government of Borongan said that they are focusing on making a shelter plan for the affected residents. A plan to control the flow of water in the river they claim will be more costly.
Instead of providing the river control, which it will cost the city government more than 200 million, iniisip na lang namin na ibili namin ng lupa kasi mura pa yung lupa at patayuan ng pabahay para i-relocate yung mga residente doon. Pero doon lang sa higher grounds.
But the biggest problem in Eastern Samar is their agricultural sector. Rice harvest season is in April or May, but 600 hectares of farmland have been inundated by floods.
Nagtanim sila ng palay noong November at saka December, bagong tubo pa lang yung mga yan, biglang wash out ng baha. Yan ang malaking problema nila.
Eastern Samar Governor Ben Evardone has since appealed for the national government to provide assistance.
Yung mga tupad ng DOLE, yun na ipangpasweldo dun sa magtatanim. Yung financial assistance ng DSWD, yung AX, ganon, yun dapat bigyan yun yung mga farmers na nasira ang kanilang mga palayan.
For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
After the break, a non-profit organization renews calls to impose a wealth tax on the country's super rich to boost the country's revenues. We'll talk more about this with Oxfam Asia's Mustafa Talpur when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. the big story here on One News.
Calls to tax the country's super rich are back as wealth inequality in the Philippines widens. Here's what we know. A recent report by the World Bank says that after 3 decades, the Philippines still has one of the widest wealth gaps in Asia. The World Bank says the Philippines' top 1% earners capture 17% of the country's national income, while the bottom 50% share 14%. Global nonprofit organization Oxfam also notes that millionaires in the country have gone up by more than 40% since 2012, which is why they say it's time to tax the rich. So far, proposals for a wealth tax remain pending in Congress. The Makabayan Bloc refiled their super rich tax bill, which seeks a 1 to 3% tax on billionaires. They say this could raise more than 230 billion pesos in annual collections from the 50 wealthiest Filipinos alone. Challenges to the country's goal of reaching upper middle income status are also present. The National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA, earlier said that because of COVID-19, the Philippines could reach upper middle income status by 2025 instead of a year earlier at 2024. At present, elevated inflation remains to be a problem for the Philippines, with high commodity prices eating into Filipinos' wallets. Talk to us about what a wealth tax can do for the Philippine economy. We have Mr. Mustafa Talpur over Zoom. He serves as Head of Policy Advocacy and Campaigns for Oxfam International Asia. Good evening, sir. Welcome to The Big Story.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sir, let's do the basics. How does a wealth tax work?
Yeah, thank you very much. So we have seen a global trend in last couple of decades that the rich people are really adding up to their fortunes, and that's in the cost of the poor people. Just last year, let me tell you that 1% rich people in Asia and Pacific own more wealth than 90%. And in last 2 years, in 2020 and 21, these were the pandemic hit years, where world economy added $42 trillion. And over 2/3 of that went to the billionaires' wealth, only 1%, and 99% people all around the world just got 37% of that wealth. So this high concentration of wealth is really creating a fundamental problem in the national economic systems, in the politics, in democracy, as rich people can easily buy a lot of things. So in our recent report, Oxfam, that we just launched this morning, we are proposing a couple of proposals on the tax. So a 1% one-time tax on a billionaires can earn you over $1.7 trillion worldwide. That's enough to really lift 200 billion people that are living under poverty. And there are many ways to tax the rich, the wealth people, the people that have a more wealth. So, for example, in the Philippines, we have calculated that if the people who have wealth more than $5 million, if they are taxed 1%, and if the Filipinos who having a wealth over 50 million USD, if taxed by 2%, and Filipino billionaires, if taxed over 3%, Philippine government can get $3.8 billion. That's enough money. Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Talpur, I mean, pardon this very basic question, but as I'm sure you won't even be surprised that some of the richest people here pay some of the lowest income taxes. If we cannot even track their income tax, they will also say that some of their assets are not liquid, some of their shareholdings are, moving targets. How do we, in countries that have wealth taxes, what is the basis even for saying that this is the wealth of this individual at this point in time? What are the factors that go into calculating who's a billionaire, who's not, who's super rich or not, or for that matter, what is the baseline from which we calculate your tax?
Yeah, I think that's not a problem with only Philippines. That's a worldwide problem. So the world's richest person, Jeff Bezos, paid only 3% effective tax rate, while a street vendor in Uganda, she earns $80 a month. She pays a 40% tax. So you are right. The rich people have created many instruments to avoid paying the taxes. But if the government agencies and the effective tax systems are in place, it's not that difficult to, that requires a political will. But I think the economic problem that COVID has created, the countries need more money to fund their poor people, their health system, the social protection. That's actually compelling the governments to invent the ways where you can really tap on those domestic resources that people are hiding and not paying the taxes. So there are several instruments that people have used. For example, there is an instrument to tax the inheritance tax, put an inheritance tax. So when a billionaire transfers their wealth to, as an inheritance, you can have a tax there. There could be a tax on dividends. There could be a tax on financial transactions. These are the ways where countries have implemented those. But because gradually, as I said, the concentration of wealth has bought those agencies and also the economic policy. So they have sold a narrative that the trickle-down economics works. So the cutting down, the taxes will work for everybody. But we have seen in the last 30, 40 years that economic system is not working.
Okay.
So adding a billionaire in the economy, it's a failure of economic policy of any country. It's a sick economic model. It's not prosperity for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Talpur. Mr. Mustafa Talpur, head of Oxfam Asia's Regional Advocacy and Campaigns. After another break, it is a double celebration for fans of Ginebra and Justin Brownlee. We will look into that when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're still watching the big story here on One News. Many Filipinos were left in shock with the early exit of Miss Philippines Celeste Cortesi in the recently concluded Miss Universe pageant. Celebrities like Vice Ganda and Kim Chiu expressed their disbelief on Twitter over Celeste failing to make it to the top 16, while former beauty queens Janine Tugonon and Ariela Arida said they were saddened by her early exit. Miss Universe 2018 Catriona Gray, a backstage host of this year's pageant, expressed her disappointment over the results. But she sent some words of encouragement to Miss Philippines and other candidates who failed to win the crown this year, saying that they, quote, always have next year. Celeste's early exit marks the end of the Philippines' 12-year streak of making it to the semi-final round. But it's not all bad news for the Philippines, as Miss USA Arboni Gabriel, who is a Filipino-American, won the 71st Miss Universe crown. The half Pinay expressed pride for her Filipino heritage by holding a Philippine flag in the pageant's after party.
Mabuhay Philippines, mabuhay Filipino fans. Maraming salamat sa lahat ng tulong ninyo. The support is everything. I feel it in my heart. The Filipino blood is so strong. We are hardworking, we're fun, and we're determined. And I am so proud to be a half Filipina.
Before we go, just less than 24 hours after winning the PBA Commissioner's Cup, Justine Brownlee has officially sworn allegiance to the Philippines. The oath-taking was officiated by Senate Justice and Human Rights Committee Chairman Francis Tolentino. Senator Bongo, along with Senator J.V. Ejercito, handed over to Brownlee a copy of Republic Act number 11937. In his speech, JB said he's grateful for the opportunity to become a Filipino. Filipinos won't have to wait that long to see Brownlee donning a Gilas jersey, given that the SBP is already eyeing Brownlee to suit up for the 6th and final window of the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers in February.
And I just want to keep making you guys proud and do whatever I can to help the national team. Whatever I can, I'm going to be available to the SBP group. I'm just very honored and just, blessed to be a Filipino and represent the country in the right way and, show that Filipino pride to the world on the international stage for basketball. So thank you guys. Mahal, ko kayo.
And that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more analysis. I'm Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News. All sides, all the time.